Despite the title software engineer looks like a fancy job with a huge paycheck, beautiful office, awesome work-life balance, and many other perks, there are also some things that could be pretty frustrating, disappointing, and even painful. That's why I feel it's important to share with you what I've learned about the dark side of this job for my last 7 years in the industry. First of all, after a couple of years in the field, I started realizing that this job goes far outside of my working hours. And I'm not talking about the production incidents, or as we call them, showstoppers, when something happens on the production and all the developers work together trying to find the best solution as fast as possible to minimize the loss or business damage from the malfunction of the website or mobile app. This is something that doesn't happen too often, luckily, at least in my career. I'm talking more about the extra hours that I invest into my job for other different reasons. For example, I've promised to be ready for the deadline, or there is another developer that is waiting for my task to be ready, as there is a dependency between our tasks. Or sometimes it seems like the task is ready, but then when I'm in the shower before going to bed, the water is really cold. I realize that there is something that could be improved. And then I find myself sitting at night near my MacBook for an hour or two trying to improve my code. Also, if there is a complex problem or maybe some tricky task, I can't really stop thinking about it until I find a solution that satisfies me. It doesn't matter if I'm in a swimming pool or going to a morning run or maybe having a lunch, I can still keep thinking on it in my background. I believe that there are some developers that close their laptop and forget about their job till the next morning. But you know, I feel like that software development is not really a job, it's more a kind of a lifestyle. I think it's really important for you to understand it, accept it, and find your own way to deal with it, or you can easily burn out. Another thing that you need to understand is that every software developer is always in a technology hamster wheel. I can give you a classic example from the front-end development. Let's assume it's 2008, 2010, you have already learned CSS, HTML, and JavaScript, and started using a very popular framework, jQuery. Then, after a couple of years, Google introduces Angular, a revolutionary framework for the web development. You take your time to learn because that's where all the market is. But then in 2 years, Facebook comes with React, and since that, the demand of the front-end developers using React is only growing. So, as you have already guessed, you are starting to learn React. Welcome to a technology hamster wheel. I can easily give you more examples like this, even relevant to backend development, mobile development, or whatever you want. If you think that you can learn some programming language and some key technologies to get the job, and then you are all set till the end of your career, you are wrong. The constant learning process is the essential part of software development's job. In my opinion, it's a good thing, because it could be probably a little bit boring to become an expert in some technology and then use it till the rest of your life. It's very easy to become dated if your job is based on working with the same legacy code base every day and you don't know what's going on the market outside of the company you work in. That's why I say that you need to understand, if you suffer from learning new things, software development is definitely not for you. Despite learning the technologies that you need to do your job, you'll probably learn a lot of stuff that is not relevant to your job. I'm talking about the job interviews preparations. Unfortunately, most of the companies nowadays still use as technical interview questions some computer science brain teasers or even university exam tasks, instead of some real questions that reflect the job that you are interviewed for. I should say that it doesn't matter how experienced you are and where you work now. There is a big chance your next technical interview will be a stress. As I have already said, first of all, you need to sacrifice your free time to get prepared for the interview. Then the interview itself, in most of the times, is a stress, as usually you need to find the solution for some generic problem that might be not relevant to an actual job at all. Also, it should happen in a limited time, with only a marker and a whiteboard, when two other developers are looking at you as an idiot and asking some questions on the way. Of course, if the company's interview process is built properly and there is a healthy working culture inside the company, the interviewers will make their best for you to feel less pressured, and even will try to help you with your thinking process. But unfortunately, it's not the case most of the times. And then if something goes wrong, you need to deal with the rejections. Trust me, it doesn't matter what your level of of self-confidence is. It's never a pleasure to deal with rejections. And after 2-3 bad interviews like that, you'll feel even worse. To be honest, it's a very interesting and important topic, and I can tell you a lot about tech interviews. So if you want to make me a separate video, hit the like button. This way I will know that this subject is interesting for you. Another thing that hits you heavily, especially after a couple of failed interviews, is imposter syndrome. It's the feeling of self-doubt that many software developers experience. Despite possessing excellent skills and solid expertise, you feel that everyone around you are much more smarter than you, and you've got your job just because of some lucky occasion or maybe even misunderstanding. Software developers suffer from imposter syndrome due to the nature of the tech industry. It's a high-skill industry with high competition and many new technologies. With the constant development and innovation in technology, no software developer can know about everything. However, instead of understanding the task's impossibility, you become stressed and confused. As a result, rather than acknowledging that it can happen to anyone, you develop a feeling of self-doubt and fear. You feel to be a fake programmer, and you think that one day your manager and your team will find this out.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
I know when you hear about imposter syndrome now and you haven't ever experienced it yet, it may sound even funny, but trust me, there is a big chance that it will hit you one day, and then you'll understand how this feeling sucks. When you gain more experience and make transition from junior developer to mid-level developer, or from mid-level developer to a senior developer, there's another fear that you can develop pretty quickly: the fear of making decisions. The more experience you gain, the more responsibility you get, and the more your decisions and code affect the product. Sometimes you get to that point where you need to decide what to do, but you don't know what to choose, and you feel that you kinda stuck. The more you think about it, the harder for you to make a decision, because you realize more and more that your own decision can damage something. It's very important to overcome this fear and start making decisions. Other way, you won't grow as a specialist. One of the ways to minimize the risk of making a wrong decision is the right communication with the right people. This brings us to the next point. The better programmer you'll become, the less code you'll write. Software development is not coding. I know it sounds like it makes no sense, but that's the reality. As I have already said, in order to make the right decisions, you need to build the right communication with the right people. Other developers, software architects, product managers, UX designers, support teams, and so on and so on and so on. You need to understand the business side of the product you work on. You'll understand that it's not a problem to write the code. The biggest challenge is to understand what exactly the program should do, and you'll need to understand from the people that might be less technical than you. So you'll have a lot of meetings. Sometimes I have the days when I don't succeed to write a single line of code. With more responsibility, you'll probably need to deal with some managing tasks. So there are a lot of things you'll need to do beyond coding. I don't know why, but most of the programming influencers, even on YouTube, don't pay enough attention to this topic. That's why I feel it's important to make it clear for you. And the last one is my favorite. I call it the roller coaster. I'm talking about the huge opportunities and big paychecks on the one hand, and recession and massive layoffs on another hand. It's a natural behavior of the whole industry. There could be a couple of years of bad times, but then the market gets stable and goes even up. One day you're getting a ridiculously big paycheck and thinking about the next steps of your career path, and another day you may find yourself looking for a new job. There are different reasons for that. The startup you work for may fail, macroeconomics changes, politics, even the war, for example the war in Ukraine. Yes, it affects the global tech market heavily. I mean, our world is complicated and it changes constantly, and every change affects the tech industry. So if you are looking for a stable job, maybe you need to become a doctor and not a software developer. By the way, I've got a full video where I discuss this topic. I believe it could be interesting for you. So see you in the next one.